Society builders paved the way to a better world, to a better day. A united approach to building a new society. Join a conversation for social transformation. Society builders. Woo.
Society Builders with your host, Dwayne Varon. Welcome to another exciting episode of Society Builders, and thanks for joining the conversation for social transformation. And welcome to the start of our 5th year, our 5th season. Can you believe it? I mean, it's so exciting. Now, we are right in the middle of our sequence of episodes exploring social action. We're gearing up for a whole sequence of episodes providing us with clear case studies on what effective social action looks like in practice. But fortunately, we are interrupting the sequence because we have another exciting message from the Universal House of Justice, and we're going to explore that message in today's episode. And then we'll resume our sequence on social action in our next episode. Now, the message we're studying today is a message we knew was coming, so we were all eagerly anticipating its arrival. Because there's currently a conference occurring at the World Center where counselors from all over the world have gathered as we approach the end of the first phase of our 9-year plan. And so, as is typical at such gatherings, the Universal House of Justice provides its guidance to help orient this consultation. And that is the message we'll be studying today. That is the message that we've so eagerly been awaiting. Now, this episode is not meant as a substitute for your own study of that message. It's designed to help further your thoughts. This isn't a summary, it's an opportunity for us to together explore some of the themes a little further. And there will undoubtedly be lots of community deepenings and consultations everywhere, which you'll be participating in, and of course you'll be studying this yourself, exploring what this means for you, for your neighborhood, for your community. So don't think of this as a replacement for your own study. Think of it as one of the many tools you'll rely on to explore the message from many different angles. And as always, remember that I speak with absolutely no authority here. My views are no more important than yours. I'm simply sharing some thoughts to help stimulate your own thinking on this a little further. So today, we studied the December 31st, 2025 message of the Universal House of Justice to the Conference of the Continental Board of Counsellors. So before we get into the December 31st, 2025 message itself, let's first understand its context. This message is a response to a previous message from the Universal House of Justice on December 30th, 2021, 4 years ago, which launched the new sequence of plans. And throughout this message, the House of Justice makes a couple of references back to this 2021 message. So there is a call and response character to the message. It's exploring the response of the Baha'i global community to the 2021 calling. It's a message which helps us all learn how has the response to that message been most effective, what new patterns have emerged that we should learn from, and how should we adjust our own lives and the pattern of our community lives to learn from that experience. So this is above all an opportunity for reflection and learning from patterns, learning from experience. And the House of Justice is providing us with the insights gleaned from this global enterprise over the past 4 years. Now, the message is arranged in 4 sections. At the bookends of the message, we have an introduction and a conclusion. The introduction frames the message, while the conclusion inspires us on our path moving forward. But the bulk of the message is arranged in 2 sections. One exploring new patterns in community life, and one exploring the implications, I think, for Baha'i institutions. Now, I'm not going to go through and summarize each of the 17 paragraphs here. That is something I know you'll do both individually and in your communities. But I would like to explore some of the themes further, and this is what we're going to focus on today. Now, a message like this is something akin to a report card. The House of Justice in 2021 calls on us to respond in engaging with a new sequence of plans, and we're now approaching the end of the first phase of the first of these plans, and they're giving us a report card on our progress in our first 4 years. And it's clear that they are pleased with our progress to date, so we can all start by breathing a sigh of relief. In fact, they praise the way we all launched into the plan, highlighting the unprecedented energy and determination in which the plan was launched at over 10,000 gatherings around the world, and how quickly this raised awareness to the objectives and special character of the plan. And they praised the swift action that followed. So a big pat on the back for all of us on how well we immediately responded to the demands of the new plan. And they praise the extent to which we've been able to widen our base. Now, I'm interpreting here a bit using this specific phrase. It's not a phrase that comes from the message, but they celebrate the fact that in roughly half of the 160 clusters that have formed since the start of the plan, these communities are now already in their third milestone. And in fact, globally, there has been a dramatic pattern of growth with more and more third stone milestone clusters. So we've built a solid foundation in our community building endeavors. So let's explore this for a second or two. Now, there is a lot of diversity in the level of activity of any community anywhere in the world at any point in time. Some Baha'i communities have a large number of believers, some have few. Regardless of its size, some communities have lots of activities, some may not. Some are actively and systematically engaged in a plan of action to improve their community lives, while in other communities, activity might be more erratic. Some have sophisticated systems for learning, others are more informal, and the quality of community spirit may differ. Hopefully, most are united, inspiring, and synergistic, but there are those where, let's say, there's still a lot of room left for improvement. Now, what's most important is that whatever state our community is in, that we grow and work towards improving our community life. And this is what community building is really all about. It's not so much about the boasting rights, about being able to say, my community is better than yours, we're a third milestone cluster. It's not about ranking, it's not about labeling. It's about lifting and improving our community life. It's about a journey, a path. So it's a part of a culture of learning. And we do this in clusters, groups of community in close proximity to each other, accompanying each other in these journeys, where the Institute process forms the engine for transformation. So, to help make us aware of this path of progress, we think in terms of key milestones. And it's not important to think rigidly in terms of these milestones because, again, it's not a competition. It's a path. It's a journey. And it's about simply focusing on this path towards improvement. So a cluster reaches its first milestone once it has coherent core activities. Study circles, devotional meetings, children's classes, junior youth activities, and where it starts engaging with cycles of growth. So these are the building blocks of our community life. And we see all the key elements of community building here, the same elements that will be present for each of the first 3 milestones. By the second milestone, these core activities are now multiplying across localities and becoming more consistent. And by the third milestone, we see what we call intensive programs of growth, a systematic approach to our teaching initiatives, structured in cycles to ensure that we have intensive bursts of teaching initiatives supported by consistent follow-up and collective learning and reflection. So it's this pattern of expansion, consolidation, reflection, and planning for the next cycle. It's a pattern that is rhythmic and continuous, collective, with emphasis on a long-term process where quality is not sacrificed for quick results and where we learn and grow together. Now, we can think of this pattern as the community building paradigm, and it's the fruit of the last sequence of plans. And as we get past this third milestone, we evolve into what we currently refer to as an advanced cluster or as a learning cluster with increasing interaction and collaboration with the society around us. And I'll refer to this as the society building paradigm. Okay, so back to our message now. So the key building block we need to lay the foundation for our transition from community building to society building is building on this third milestone. And here the House of Justice is celebrating this achievement for the first phase, that we have built a solid foundation in most communities, and this is broadly being adopted across the Baha'i world. And it is this pattern of movement across these milestones that needs to be continuously replicated across Baha'i communities, further widening our base. And stronger clusters need to help those clusters still working their way through. And of course, pioneering is an instrument helping weaker clusters evolve more. So that's the celebration, but it's also followed by guidance, that this task of moving communities through the different stages remains formidable, with an urgent need to cultivate the capacities needed to intensify programs of growth. And gaining insights to this process, not only in reaching the third milestone, but in moving beyond that third milestone, is what much of the rest of the message is really focused on. Now, the second section of the message explores these patterns in much greater depth, and at the outset, it further crystallizes a concept that I'd like us to explore further here. With all notable progress, the key starting point has been the capacity of the friends at the grassroots to learn together, learning from both their own experiences and from those of more advanced clusters. But here, the House of Justice frames this learning experience using what to me were some words that just leapt from the letters of the text. They say, without any sense of applying a fixed formula. Without any sense of applying a fixed formula. And they expand on this idea even further. They explain that while the fundamental features of a program of growth are the same, its aim, its guiding principles, its basic instruments, so while these are the same everywhere, growth is an organic process, not a mechanical one. And this is the theme I'd like us to explore further here, of growth not resulting from a formula, and of it being organic rather than mechanical in nature. Now, all too often, I think people are searching for a magic formula for growth. They hear a story about a community somewhere that is doing X, and they immediately assume that X is the magic formula they've been searching for. I mean, it's proven, right? This town did it. They got spectacular results. Surely the same fortune will await us. And so they adopt the method. But then they're surprised when they have little to show for it. So what went wrong? And this speaks to the organic versus mechanical approach. So a plant grows in an organic way, which is very non-linear. Long periods of time might pass where it appears that nothing is happening. Then you might have a burst of activity as this plant suddenly springs forth. It's complicated, and it depends upon a lot of circumstances, a lot of variables, a lot of factors that contribute to that growth. It's not as simple as just growing. But now let's contrast this kind of growth with that of a factory making widgets. It can grow mechanically. You want to make more widgets? Not a problem. You buy more machines and you grow your factory. And guess what? You get more widgets. Growth is very mechanical, very linear. So, what the House of Justice is explaining here is that the kind of growth we are likely to see is not mechanical. It's not the result of a simple formula. It's complex and organic and requires local innovation and discovery. And there are a whole host of factors that need to be present there for it to really cultivate. Here, we need to engage with our society. We need to read our society and understand their relative priorities and adapt our approaches in kind to respond to what works best under our specific circumstances. And adapt our approaches in kind to respond to what works best under our specific circumstances. So you can't look to the outside for a magic solution. You can learn from others' experiences, but you need a culture of learning that allows you to discover. And here, when I say you, I'm using the collective you, like y'all. So y'all need a culture that allows you and your fellow community members to together discover the approaches that are most effective to your circumstances. You know, many, many years ago, I remember Dr. Arbab, who was then a counselor, and he was working with the youth in the United States and Canada where a Baha'i youth movement was in full bloom. It was such an exciting time. And one of the things that Dr. Arbab used to tell us is that we shouldn't think like a corporation with a master plan that would unfold. You know, a corporation has a plan and its employees are like little pegs that need to fit that plan. And there is growth that results, but it's often mediocre and often misses out on the biggest revolutions in a field because that revolutionary innovation wasn't a part of the plan. So imagine that you're a company like Kodak, the biggest maker of cameras in the world, and you're diligently following your plan, and someone approaches you with a digital camera. Well, that's not a part of the plan, so naturally you reject it. And then one day you wake up and you're out of business because digital cameras have taken over and completely eroded your market. And this happens all the time with everything from watches to phones to music players. You remember when you had that Nokia phone or that Motorola Razr? Gone, obsolete. The biggest players in the world go out of business because they have rigid plans that can't adapt to change. Instead, Dr. Arbab used to tell us to think like revolutionaries. We are clear in our cause. We are clear in our objectives. We're constantly hunting for the opportunity to advance. He used the example of a landlord accidentally killing one of his workers through some kind of malpractice. And as revolutionaries, we see this and we jump on the window of opportunity because we know that in 2 days, the attention to the story will have moved on. So we adjust our response to the circumstance where we see receptivity, seizing our window of opportunity. We still plan, but we plan in a way which is very different to the Fortune 500 corporation. So he was trying to help us recognize that our framework for understanding planning was wrong, that it was corporate. So he was encouraging us to think differently, that we won't know the specifics, that we need to discover the specific opportunities that arise, but that we not misunderstand planning to think that it's mechanical, rigid, pre-planned, that it's more dynamic than all that. So that's what I thought of as I was reading this section of the message, how we need to rethink our approach to planning for growth. It's not about a magic formula. It's not mechanical. It needs to constantly adapt to local conditions and opportunities. Then the House of Justice helps us learn from the experience of communities that have passed beyond the third milestone. And we see here an intensification of the process with expanding resources and more complex activity with the quality and utility of reflection measured by the purposeful action arising from it. Now, for me personally, this is the most exciting part of the message. It helps us get just a glimpse of the exciting journey that is ahead for all of us. The reason we built the foundation with the third milestone is to advance us into this phase where we're suddenly bound by a completely different reality. Like a plane, we're no longer moving on the ground, but suddenly we're airborne and we're bound by a completely different reality. And with this new stage comes a spirit. And this is something which is difficult to articulate, it's difficult to measure and express in tangible form. But there is a heightened spirit, a feeling of belonging and a sense of common endeavor and mutual support at the level of community culture. And of course, there is growing collaboration with wider society. And this is where I think we start to see this dramatic transition from community building to society building. It's in the growing interaction with wider society as collaborators, not as just mere recipients. And there are two key constructs that they highlight in this context: that it becomes self-perpetuating and that it does so without the need for new layers of administrative structure. Now, these are both powerful constructs that we need to reflect on. Self-perpetuating, I think, implies this capacity to grow on its own accord without the need for outside resources. And let me give you an example. I'm giving you a sneak preview here of a set of interviews that are coming up in our next sequence of episodes, where I interview Baha'is from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the DRC. Now, the DRC is really at the forefront of the society building paradigm in the Baha'i world that we're talking about here. They are actively collaborating with the society around them and helping empower communities to solve their own problems in incredibly exciting ways. They provide a fantastic example of what Baha'i community life starts to look like as we move beyond the third milestone. So let me give you just a small example here. Due to a range of very serious problems, there are parts of the DRC where civil society is now completely dysfunctional. It's completely broken down. In these villages, there are no operating schools and not much of any other kind of government function. And so Baha'is in these communities have started building schools organically, small at first, but growing into fully functional schools, even working with their larger communities to build physical schools. And of course, a building is not enough. You need teachers. And so the Baha'i community has helped build training programs for teachers. And so you have in these villages a self-perpetuating system of education with the local community solving its own problems and raising the resources that this demands from within. Trust me, you're going to be blown away when you hear these amazing souls from the DRC tell their story. And this partnership with wider society is truly widespread throughout the Congo. It's estimated that the Baha'i community in the DRC is about 100,000 people, from what I understand. But there are something like 700,000 people engaging with our core activities. So that's the kind of widespread interaction you should imagine. Now, we don't all face the specific demands of the DRC, and we may never reach this level of interaction with the society around us. But in the same way, there are issues in our communities. And here we need to learn to collaborate with our neighbors in helping join together and empowering us all to together address our social ills. So we act as catalysts with the society around us. Now, the other construct here was the idea of doing this without the need for new layers of administrative structure. And this touches on a different construct that I haven't seen articulated like this before. And it raises questions that I hadn't thought about before. I mean, it's a really interesting point, right? When you think about a problem, when you start to engage with your neighbors about something, one of the first tendencies is to want to start with structure. Hey, let's do something about racism in our community. Okay, let's form a committee. It's the natural way in the Western world that we think about addressing problems through structure. But instead, we need to focus on service. Service above structure. Let's focus on just getting people to help serve together. Don't worry about the structure stuff because, of course, we already have institutions to help support and guide us. Now, I'm sure this evolves, and it evolves in ways I don't understand, with new responsibilities for Baha'i institutions that will also evolve. It's an interesting area to keep your eye on as the plans progress. But for now, focus on service, confident that the Baha'i institutions will support us. Our challenge is simply to engage and interact with the world around us with creativity and ingenuity, discovering how to best apply the teachings to the needs of societies. Now, much of our approaches to both social action and discourse today have largely been framed by that community building paradigm that we talked about earlier. This is where we currently see most modest but sustained initiatives for social action. And it's only natural that in these community building stages, through to this third milestone, that most of our attention is centered in raising our community's own resources. But beyond this third milestone, communities increasingly turn their attention to the systematic and effective delivery of other programs. And one of the most immediate is in helping provide for a community's educational needs. This might be as simple as providing after-school tutoring or as complex as building a community school, like that example we talked about earlier in the DRC, addressing both the spiritual and intellectual growth of its children and youth. And here we see a pattern evolve in our interaction with wider society, with parents and with relatives, but also with officials and with senior educators. And in due course, many of these social institutions and leaders start to see the Baha'i community as a resource that they respect. And so they increasingly will turn to our institutions, reaching out for insight and for opportunities for collaboration. And of course, our challenge is to welcome this without getting entangled in all their politics. And as this pattern grows, increasingly, people come to see our community and our institutions as theirs, as an organic and inherent part of their community. I mean, this is so powerful, right? People increasingly coming to view our institutions as their own. And of course, the implication here is that increasingly, this means that we have to better understand our roles, not only as institutions serving the Baha'i community, but as institutions serving the needs of the whole community. Our LSAs will increasingly see themselves and understand themselves as an institution representing the needs of all of the inhabitants of their communities. And those inhabitants will also see the LSA as a resource to help them as they address their own challenges in life. So this is where we're going to eventually end up. And as this respect for our institutions grows in wider society, well, that's the exciting path we're on. So this is the kind of pattern that we're starting to see in places like the DRC. But it's not limited to whole nations. It's actually much more common in small pockets, like in a neighborhood, perhaps even in your cluster. And we have an episode coming up where I'll interview people in a small neighborhood in the Perth area where I live, a neighborhood that's got a little bit more than 1,000 inhabitants in total, where we're seeing this kind of interaction with wider society, where there are something like 300 people from wider society. I mean, that's almost a third of the neighborhood interacting with a relatively small community of about 30 people. So we're talking about like a tenfold growth in terms of people engaging with the community in this way. So it's truly a very significant interaction. So stay tuned for that episode. And in places like this, where 10 times as many from wider society interact with us, there is a new pattern emerging. And this is what I think is so incredibly exciting, because in communities like this, you see the contours of the plan in the everyday life of the community at large. People are collaborating to address their needs together. And in this context, the term program of growth no longer adequately describes the process that's at work. Now, obviously, these kind of case studies are still few and far between, so we have a lot to learn in the years ahead about how this all works and how it works most effectively. But this is what we want to aspire to for our communities. This is where we're really shifting into this new society building paradigm. And the House of Justice here is just giving us this glimpse, a glimpse informed by the experience of these trailblazers. And the House of Justice says, a new reality is coming into view as the Baha'i community's relationship with society evolves. Bright horizons beckon. Now, I think the next section really explores the implications of all of this for administrators. And they start this section painting a picture which should really whet the appetite of institutions yearning for learning from a diversity of experience. Here they talk about how in the natural environment, it's combinations and connections that create vibrancy and new life. So let's explore what this all means. Imagine a dry valley where little seems to grow. One season, rainwater begins to trickle down from several hillsides. On its own, each small stream is modest, barely enough to nourish the soil. But as the streams meet, they form a network of flowing waters. Seeds carried from different places settle along the banks. Microorganisms awaken, insects appear, birds follow, and soon the valley begins to green. No single stream creates that flourishing. It's an interaction between these variables. It's the connections among them that gives rise to new life. Something emerges that none of the parts could produce alone. Now, learning unfolds in much the same way. An insight gleaned during a study circle, a shared reflection on an activity, some initiative that you take to try something new, a lesson learned through that action, dialogue with neighbors. Each interaction may seem small in isolation, but when these exchanges flow freely and connect with one another, when they result from diverse individual initiatives and collective endeavors, they form a living current of learning. Insights combine, perspectives deepen, new understandings take shape, often in ways no one planned in advance. Just as life in the valley arises from the meeting of the waters, a flourishing process of learning emerges from the countless formal and informal interactions that are cultivated to meet, mingle, and move together. So here, learning in the Baha'i community is described as a dynamic, interconnected process, much like a living ecosystem in the natural world, where vitality and growth arise from constant interaction and combination. And at its foundation is a free-flowing exchange of insights, experiences, and ideas among individuals at the grassroots, which is continually enriched through reflection on action. This learning does not remain local, but unfolds across regional, national, even global levels, drawing on both lessons emerging from specific local context and the accumulated experience of the worldwide Baha'i community within the framework of the plan. Institutions of the faith have a distinct responsibility for tending to this ecosystem of learning. While individuals, communities, and agencies all contribute, institutions ensure that appropriate formal and informal arrangements exist to sustain learning, foster loving and humble relationships, and enable insights to circulate widely. As lines of action or locality multiply, local assemblies, often in collaboration with cluster agencies, provide coordination and planning so that resources, encouragement, and guidance are directed where they're most needed. Mechanisms for sharing knowledge within clusters, among adjoining clusters, and at regional and national levels allow lessons learned in one place to rapidly benefit many others, with new structures emerging when growth requires them. A central element of this learning process is the evolving work of the training institutes. And as participation in institute programs continue to expand, administrative arrangements grow in sophistication to support tutors, animators, and teachers in meaningful collective learning. Ongoing conversation, mutual reflection, and accompaniment by coordinators and support teams help maintain quality while encouraging creativity, flexibility, and wider reach. At the same time, institutions systematically collect, analyze, and share insights through consultation gatherings and collaborative networks, strengthening their connections with other institutions, ensuring that learning contributes to the broader process of growth and service. And then we get to the final section, which should truly inspire you and encourage you to rise in service. And then we get to the final section, which should truly inspire you and encourage you to redouble your service. It starts with praise for our response so far, pursuing the plan with wholehearted devotion, with dedication to the process of learning. And then they provide us with a vivid and truly moving description of the transformative effect this all has on the life of the individual believer. And here I'm going to quote directly from them. They say, "What we observe is eager friends learning how to more closely align their pursuits with the will of God. Through engagement with the plan's framework for action, individuals are discovering ways to improve life in all its aspects, for themselves, for their children, for their wider family, and for their community. Theirs is a heightened spiritual consciousness that leads to a life of purpose and meaning, a life dedicated to developing their God-given potentialities and laboring for the transformation of society. They recognize the value of knowledge in propelling progress, are committed to its generation, and share it freely and humbly. Learning is a habit of mind for them, an orientation in all they do. In every face they see a fellow seeker after truth. They wholly devote themselves to the spiritual, intellectual, and material advancement of a population. They are not swept off course by the world's unabating distractions. Steady do they go, patient and perseverant, pledged to long-term endeavor. And in the company of many others, they are building havens of peace." Wow. And they give us a gift in exploring how to find our own path of service. I visualize this as a golden pyramid or a golden triangle of service, exploring the interaction between three forces. First, the needs of the faith. Then, the unique opportunities available to us. And in some cases, perhaps, these might be opportunities available only to us. And then finally, the level of sacrifice we're prepared to make. So our service finds its path somewhere in the interaction between these three forces: the needs of the faith, the unique opportunities available to us, and the level of sacrifice we're prepared to make. And then they focus on something very specific, which I find very interesting. They had done this originally in their 2021 message, but they draw attention to this again here in this message. I don't know if this is them saying, hey, did you guys miss this? Or maybe this is an area we really have to work on. Maybe we haven't been making good progress on it. I don't know. But they draw attention again to a very specific stage in a seeker's journey. How we can best help people cross that threshold and embrace the faith. And they tell us that we need to get better at recognizing, and I'm quoting here, when the city of the heart is open, and on conversations that lead to this moment and that follow it. Much remains to be learned in this regard, both about how to discern receptivity in different settings and how to acknowledge when it is already matured into faith. So take this as a very specific challenge for us to work on. Let's explore how to become better at getting people to the stage, while also becoming better sensitized to understanding when people reach that stage and how to best accompany and support them at that magic moment in their lives. And they then close with a thought we should all deeply reflect on. As you look back on your own life, how do you want to look at your life's journey? So they close with these words, and again I quote, "Looking back over one's life, there can be no greater joy and comfort than to know it was spent in acute awareness of the divine remedy, that no effort was spared to proffer that remedy to receptive souls, and that during those fleeting years when opportunity was at hand, even in the midst of difficulties, every chance was seized to respond to humanity's intense need." Wow, so much for us to reflect on. Remember, today's episode is not a substitute for your own study or that which you'll engage in within your neighborhoods and communities, but hopefully it will have helped you further explore some of the ideas so beautifully enunciated by the Universal House of Justice. Okay, we're going to get back to our normal sequence of episodes, providing case studies on what effective social action looks like in practice. And we're going to do that starting with our next episode. In fact, we'll be telescoping from individual initiative all the way up to the response of a whole nation. So there's some really exciting episodes for us up ahead. And as is our new tradition on this podcast, I close each episode with a song I write summarizing the theme of that episode. So today's song explores this message of the Universal House of Justice, a song I'm calling Bright Horizons Beckon, drawing from that key phrase in the message, giving us that glimpse of life beyond the third milestone. Again, I write the lyrics for these songs, but I use AI for the voices, instrument, and musical composition. So stick around if you'd like to hear that song, or you can go to BahaiTunes.org to listen to the full collection of Baha'i AI songs I've composed. Well, that's it for today. Join me again next time on Society Builders.
As we lay down solid foundations for our communities, with capacity building and action for the needs of societies. Together we learn and discover there's no formula to succeed. It's a habit of the mind, a culture of learning we need. Bright horizons beckon as new realities come into view. Our relationship with society evolves as we build the world anew. We live with acute awareness of the divine remedy, seizing every chance to respond as we read society. We arise with a heightened spirit, building havens of peace for all, rising above the world world's unabating distractions as we arise to respond to the call. It's a steady, patient process where growth is organic, you see. As our friends and neighbors join us, together shaping our reality.
Bright horizons beckon
As new realities come into view,
Our relationship with society evolves
as we build the world anew.
We live with acute awareness
Of the divine remedy,
seizing every chance to respond
as we read society.
Bright horizons beckon
As new realities come into view,
Our relationship with society evolves
as we build the world anew.
We live with acute awareness
Of the divine remedy,
seizing every chance to respond
as we read society.